Hey there, YouTubers. This is just a little bit of a follow-up to a previous video, but you can watch it as a standalone. What we see on the screen, 109 through 116, these are the numbered passages in philosophical investigations. Now, Wittgenstein did not come up with this enumeration himself, I don't think, but it was his practice in the Tractatus, which he did live to see. Like, this one was published after he died, and the exact arrangements I think his editors came up with, and therefore the numbers. But he did enumerate, and this goes back to Spinoza too, right? Spinoza was into enumeration. I think it's of course very useful when you write aphorisms, because his paragraphs really do stand alone quite a bit as well. So great that he did number them. Hypertext is what he anticipated, I think. So 1110 has always been good for me to think about. Language or thought is something unique. This proves to be a superstition, not a mistake, itself produced by grammatical illusions. Relating to that, 116. When philosophers use a word, knowledge, being, object, I, proposition, name, and try to grasp the essence of the thing, one must always ask oneself, is the word ever actually used in this way in the language which is its original home? Now I'm going to jump to a philosophy lecture I just watched on YouTube and quote this guy, let this guy talk. He talks a lot about this screen that he's looking at right now. Instead of a chalkboard in his lecture hall, he has a screen and he talks about it a lot. And it's kind of interesting to watch it this way because I'm, of course, watching on a screen and there's this YouTube frame that he's in, but there's no real screen in my reality corresponding to his screen. He talks about that screen, but I'm watching on another screen of which he is completely unaware because this is years later, right? This is like 6 years later in the future.
But now, yeah, we're going to look at the theory of one particular person, Jacques Derrida, who may be the person who really put postmodernism on the map in intellectual terms. This is one of his most popular books, Margins of Philosophy. And he has a particular variety of postmodernism, which is referred to as deconstruction. He's famous for saying everything is a text. Now that seems ridiculous, right? I mean, Margins of Philosophy, that's a text. That's a work, a literary work. It consists of words. Is this chair a text? Can I? Well, he says yes, right? Good, he'll say yes. But in our ordinary way of thinking, is this a text? Suppose I say, all right, you want to know what you're supposed to read since the link didn't work? Read this. That's weird, right? It's like, what do you mean read that? I don't know what to do with that. And so
So that's kind of funny again to watch on a screen because, of course, I would say this is all language around here. All these little boxes and there's Rick Roderick's YouTube. I could start that up here. It's also a control panel, right? Because I have this mouse with all these superpowers and I can go place called home and look at my history and all this stuff. So I'm definitely in a language environment here. And because of the century I live in, everything's really, let's see, is this any of these? Secret Knowledge, School of Tomorrow. Do I have a philosophy section? I think this is Coffee Shops Network. That's where we do philosophy, kind of in stereotype, right? I'm not referring in specific to any brand name coffee shop that you may be thinking of. Anyway, back to Wittgenstein. He gives us a different idea of language. So, setting aside Derrida, who I'm not an expert on and haven't read a lot of, and just talking about language, instead of the word text, let's substitute the word language. And the way the investigations opens, or towards the beginning, he's got people building things. Hand me that slab kind of thing. Or think of a surgeon, scalpel, you hand him or her, right? You're doing something, engaged in an activity. And so your language is about coordinating with some other people and getting something accomplished. It's not, you're not describing the world. It's not propositions about the world. Think about driving, which I did yesterday for quite a few miles. There's lanes in the road, there's markings, there's traffic lights turning red, yellow, green, there's signifiers, there's signs, right? But is it the text is, where does the text leave off? Where does the language leave off and not language start? Like, is the green light part of language, but the pavement with the lines on it, that's not language? Can language be out there and physical? Or do we insist that language be either what humans write or speak? It's somehow, because we all have different languages, we think. I mean, it's true, we do. We all have these different languages for driving down the road. But, people speak Hindi or Chinese or English or German or French or Thai. They're all driving and they're all speaking different languages. And so we think of language as something different from the driving, different from the roads, different from the physical environment of the roads. I think we think that way because we think of something that stays the same even as languages come and go. But I would say all these languages include their environment. They're all forms of life. They all include driving and the lines down the road and the actual engine of the car and the car itself. These are all part of the machinery of the universe, as is language. And not as is language, it's all language. Really, that you would put a line out there and say, oh, language stops right here, right at the green light where it's green. That's language, but the pole that's holding the light up, that's not language, right? That's why I think he says language or thought is something unique. In what way? It's all one big continuous signifying machine, you could say, that takes intelligence to move through. At least in the case of humans, there's thinking that goes on and all that. You could call that reading the book of nature. It used to be much more common in medieval thought that we really did see the whole world as a text. So I don't know. Again, I'm not a super Derrida fan. I haven't earned the right to call myself a fan. But I do see that you could interpret saying everything is a text as going back to a well established Western civilizational meme. That's a meme we've had before. So it's not that radical, in other words. That language includes action and doing things like building a house, that would be a quote linguistic activity. Again, we're prejudiced against saying so because, like Fuller says, we have trouble recognizing technology beyond our own. Oh, a seashell, that's not high technology. A cockroach isn't technology. And same way we would say about language, the word cockroach is language, but the cockroach itself is not, we say, but we say. That's our choice to design things that way. But can you see beyond that, and can you destroy that barrier if you want to? Do you have that power? Something to think about. That'll be enough for tonight. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.